To do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. Talking Boxing with Billy C is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
Live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero. It's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you listen, whenever you're watching. I hope you're doing okay. Got a busy show scheduled for you today, but first, today's show is being brought to you in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant located on St. Simon's Island in Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Find out why I go all the way to St. Simon's for an authentic Italian meal. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by our next Billy C boxing event. It's going to be taking place at the end of August at the Sea Palms Resort in St. Simon's Island. You got to make your plans now because it is going to be basically an invitation only, but it's going to be the biggest, best Billy C event that we've done to date. We're going to have not one, not two, but three, actually 4 days of activities that you guys are going to love, all surrounding around boxing. We're going to have many former world champions and celebrities joining us, so we got packages available. You got to get it through the show, so drop me an email, billy@talkinboxing, TALKINBOXING.com, and I'll hook you up. The exact dates will be announced when we get back from vacation next week, so make sure you stick around for that. And speaking of vacation, don't forget we will not be doing live shows next week. But today's show is also being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molino, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. And you can get a copy of it right now while you're watching or listening to this show. Just visit barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. Find out why I'm so adamant about getting my man Tom Molino's story told. Coming up a little bit later on the show, we got Boxing Hall of Famer Larry Hazard joining us. I got a whole bunch of stuff to talk to him about. One of the things is the open scoring email we got yesterday. We were discussing a little bit. That's right up Larry's alley. Also, today's the day. That's right. Blast from the Past. Alex Papali will be joining us later. And we will be doing a blast from the past on one of my favorite all-time fighters, Tommy the Hitman Hearns. You don't want to miss that. I got some emails to read. I got some news. Hey, first I want to give a shout-out to our newest affiliate, WSMN 1590 in Nashua, New Hampshire. Check out their website, www.wsmn1590.com. You can check us out there. Make sure you email my man George. Tell him that you love the show. And speaking of George, if you're listening, man, you got to come down to St. Simon's and bring your better half who's from Georgia, and we'll have some great time. He's a fellow Jet fan of mine, like myself, I should say, unfortunately, for my man George. But we're going to have some fun at the end of August, and hopefully we could get represented by WSMN. And also while we're at it, always a great radio station, WGIG out of Brunswick, right up the street from Sal's. We're glad that we're on those stations, including all of the other affiliates and, of course, our television networks. But anyway, did you hear the news, the latest news? The WBC, yeah, they're coming up with another belt. I mean, it's just what we need in boxing, another belt, right? Well, no, they're planning on having a special belt for Triple G and Canelo, the rematch. I can't help but think, first of all, didn't Canelo refuse to accept a belt from the WBC? I don't know. They said that they reported that they're going to present a special belt to the winner of the fight between Canelo and Triple G. It's a big boxing event. We're looking forward to a new edition of the Adolfo Lopez Mateos belt. So we'll see what happens. That's what WBC President Mauricio Suleiman has announced. Another belt. Is this basically like a participation trophy? Because that's what it sounds like to me. Joining me from St. Simon's is my man Sal Rocky Senecola. Sal, we give out participation trophies to kids. The kids in college kind of get a pass just from showing up. I mean, the whole world is becoming pretty crazy now. Boxing, isn't this just another participation trophy? I mean, they're going to give the winner that. I mean, it's a unified fight. All the belts are on the line. Why do we need to give another one? What's your thoughts?
Unbelievable. I just don't understand it. What are they going to call it? The Super Duper Superman World Trophy? I don't know. I can't imagine. You got all the existing belts on the line right now, and it's very hard for any one fighter in any single division to unify all of the belts. And now they want to come out with a belt for the belts, maybe? I don't know. It's beyond my comprehension, unfortunately, because I really would love to see boxing go back to 15 rounds. I'd like to see boxing go back to same-day weigh-ins. I'd like to see boxing go back to maybe 1, 2, top 3 belts. That's it. That we can manage. These other belts, these interim belts, these other belts, hey, forget about it. It's too much to follow.
Well, I think what the WBC is doing is literally giving this belt. I can't see them charging a sanctioning fee. I think they're just giving the belt as an additional trinket.
Well, yeah.
You see, the problem with all the belts, obviously, I say this all the time, dilution and all of that, because it still goes back to the value of the belt is good old-fashioned supply and demand. But here's the problem. Here's why these guys keep surviving, Sal.
Yes.
And forget the top 4 or 5. All these other trinkets that are out there. It's the promoter's fault. When they have a sanctioning body, hey, they knock on the door. Hey, Mr. Promoter, I know you got this fight between Terrible Tim and Vinny Gumbats, and Terrible Tim, his record is 5-3, and Vinny Gumbats has got a really stellar record of 6-2. So we want to make this fight for a title. We'll give you our I Want to Be belt for nothing. Here you can promote. And the promoter says, okay, that's good. And he says, hey, this fight now is a championship fight for the I Want to Be You belt. I mean, come on, man. That's they should just say, no, what belt is that? That's no value. Promoters don't feel they can sell tickets to fights without having a belt on the line. That's the bottom line. Network execs they feel they can't sell advertising or sell a broadcast on a network if there's not a belt on the line. So really, they're banking on the stupidity of the fans to not know what value a belt has. What belts do have. I don't know. Follow the bouncing belt, Sal.
Well, yeah, and it's a shame because it's really the stupidity of the promoters and the managers and the sanctioning bodies and the powers that may be, because they're trying to put validity into these belts, and where it should have been like it always has been in the past. Hey, here's a fight for the contendership, or here's the elimination fight, or here's 2 fighters going at it. One's going on, one's going backwards, or one's going to have to remake up or reinvent themselves. I mean, that's what the drama. That's what was initially understood about when 2 fighters get in a ring. One's going forward, one's going to be stagnant, and one wins and one loses. Or if it's a draw, we could possibly get a rematch. There was other issues that there was a good fight being made that we could see on a Saturday afternoon on Wide World of Sports, CBS, or NBC. Those days, and we were very interested in looking at those fights because you had the characters, you had the boxers, you had the names that brought value to that weight class, to that fight, and whether they were champions or whether they were defending champions or whether they were contenders vying for a championship. That's what happened, and we were attracted to that because we knew these fighters, and we followed these fighters, and we identified something with these fighters and these fights, the significance.
Well, that's the problem. They just feel that, they can't sell a fight. The promoters they're lazy. They don't promote anymore. That's the problem.
Like I said, Bill, and it's a shame because, the old grassroots, I always say that, it does work. And, you had back then, you had, before even main events popped on the scene, you had basically Bob Arum and you had Don King. And then main events came up, and they flew as high as everybody, and they held on to a great outfit that had the credibility, had the fights, had everything about it. And you know what? Those were all hustlers and bustlers, whatever you want to look at. Bob Arum, Teddy Brenner, Bruce Trampler with Top Rank. You had Don King, and you had King Productions, and you had main events with Dan Duva, Lou Duva, Dino Duva, Kathy Duva. I mean, you had a whole organization that promoted, that was behind. It was well orchestrated, and these guys made the machine work. And they did the promoting, and they made the fights happen, and that was it. And those days are gone.
And don't forget Pete and Peter and Petey and Little Petey and Repeaty. I mean, all of those guys.
Yeah, Repeaty did a lot too.
I know. Well, the thing is,
he was close to rematch.
Yeah, not to always talk about it because we always seem to boxing was better yesteryear, back in the day. All of that. I mean, we can't keep doing that. But the truth of the matter is that it's not just boxing, all right? So let's not just, we're not bashing boxing. We're bashing.
I love it.
We're bashing the way the world has become. I mean, I was just looking at something in the chat room that a coach posted. Max Kellerman is now First of all, you remember the Indians?
He's running for president.
The Cleveland Indians, the baseball team, is doing away with their mascot because they say it's offensive. They want the Washington Redskins to do away with their name because people say it's offensive. I mean, this has been around for all this time, and the only way it's offensive is if you look at it that way. Other people don't. Most people don't. Now Max Kellerman is saying the Fighting Irish mascot was basically an Irish guy dressed like a leprechaun. Is offensive. I mean, give me a break.
Max Kellerman saying that?
Yeah. So
are you kidding me?
Anyway, listen, it's offensive to me that everything's so offensive to everybody else. We're a bunch of wimps. Everybody's a bunch of wimps. I swear to God. Let me move on. Let me move on. There was a really good fight announced yesterday, and I don't know if it's a really good fight. It's trying to be billed as one, but on Showtime on March 9th, former world champion Victor Postal will face top contender Regis Prograis in a fight that's going to be on Showtime. It's for the vacant WBC junior welterweight title. When you look at these two guys, Regis Prograis, by the computer ranking, is ranked at number 23. His best fight to date, really, was his last one. I happen to have been ringside for. He blew away Joel Diaz Jr., who was undefeated in that fight for an NABF junior welterweight title up at the Turning Stone. He stopped them in June of last year. But when he's 5'8", a southpaw, 67-inch reach, 20-0 with 17 knockouts. Now when he steps in the ring with Victor Postal, he's way younger. At 29, Victor Postal is 34, so you got a 5-year age difference there. But Victor Postal, former world champion, he's ranked number 4 in the world by the computer. He's 3 inches taller, but get this, Sal, 6.5-inch arm reach longer advantage. He's only been beaten once, and that was a unanimous decision loss to Terrence Crawford when Terrence Crawford unified the junior welterweight title. That is not any kind of a loss to worry about. This guy not only beat, but knocked out Lucas Matisse. He beat contenders Selkirk Iden, Hammer and Hank Lundy. He's had a pretty good career, 29-1 with 12 knockouts. I'm not so sure that Progress is ready for this guy. I mean, he fought his last fight in September. It was a stay busy fight after his unanimous 12-round decision loss to Terrence Crawford. I don't know. I think that Regis Progress is, he's being billed because he's the Lou DiBella's fighter. He's being billed as finally getting his chance and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I think this is too much of a jump up in talent level. What do you think?
I don't know. I'm not overly impressed with Postal. I think that it could be, as we say, this guy a budding star, and maybe he'll rise to the occasion. He's going to have to do something if he steps in the ring with Postal, and I think that he's going to have to be at the next level, and we're going to see if all these fights have given him the experience that he can get the mindset and the frame and a fighting style that's going to win and beat and counter Victor Postal. And anything's possible. And I personally, I think Postal's best days are probably behind him. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's a good fight. It's a good fight.
Listen, his only loss to Terrence Crawford.
I know.
And they went the distance. It was a one-sided fight. But let me tell you something. Victor Postal's a good fighter. He's going to be too much for Progress. Progress hasn't. This is the problem. Progress hasn't progressed, and the reason is because they don't let him fight anybody. Yeah, listen. This is the problem with the U.S. boxers today. They don't fight meaningful fights on the way up. Yes, they're talented. Yes, they display all that talent in the gym, etc. Their management and stuff wants to protect them. And it all falls into the smoke screen that we call the business of boxing. And what happens is a kid like this gets his opportunity, and is he really prepared? It's like going to a gunfight with only 2 bullets in the gun. And hey, listen, he may be 5 years younger, but he's given up a wealth of experience. He's given up a height and extremely big reach advantage. And I just think, and by the way, Victor Postal had a great amateur career. I don't see this being a competitive fight. Victor Postal's going to go postal on Regis Progress.
You're
That's what I think.
Funny guy. When is this fight going to take place?
On Showtime on March 9th.
All right, well, we'll be ringside for that, Billy. Maybe we'll even do a post-fight if we want.
You're going to be ringside? It's in Deadwood, South Dakota. I would love to go there. Why don't we go?
Absolutely. Well, we either ringside in front of the screen or in front of the ring. You call it. We'll do it.
I'll be watching it. You'll probably be catching little drips and drabs of it the next day. You know how
No. I'm going to watch it because I'm very interested in seeing this. Because, here's the thing. Yes, that was the old formula of success. Let's feed a fighter. Let's get him up and let's let him see if he could rise to the occasion. Let's put him in with a real world fighter after we got a record and he's gotten some experience. But let's see what he could do. And some of these fighters could do it. They get into a real fight for the first time and they rise to the occasion, and it's like nothing else was ever expected from them. They do fine. Some fighters, it's like, wow, what am I looking at? What am I over my head for now? It depends on the character, the individual, if it's mentally, emotionally, and physically ready to take on that next step.
Well,
I
don't know. Listen. And it's not like he's 22.
No, it's not like he's 22. The guy's been around a little bit. He's got to have some experience.
5 years younger.
29 years old.
5 years younger, but way less experience. I'm sorry.
Way less could still be enough. We'll see. That's why it's going to be. It should be a good fight.
Why don't you look into Postal? Why don't you look into Postal? See his record. See who he's fought. Then reevaluate this fight. Okay, please.
Oh, I'm going to.
Yeah.
But I know that Postal's had a great career. But you know what? To say that his best days are ahead of him, is hard because he's had a great long
Who
career.
said that?
No, I'm just saying. What I'm saying is he might be at the time when it's going to be ripe for him to be taken.
Okay, but you're right about that, about the age and stuff like that. You know, he hasn't been beat up. He hasn't been hurt. He's got the one loss against Terrence Crawford. But it's not going to be against the guy who has no experience fighting a world-class level fighter. I'm sorry. You can't jump from fighting cupcake after cupcake into a world-class fight and expect to be, a dominant, unless that fighter that you're fighting is finished. Like you suggest. Listen. I don't think he's finished. I'm not saying his best days are in front of him, but I'm not saying he's finished either. I say he's going to walk away with another title, and we'll all have to see on March 9th. Let's read some emails here. The first one's from my man Jesse. He says, "Hey, Billy C and Sal, I saw the Dorticos Murat fight. It was great. I had Dorticos winning about 2 rounds ahead. I just saw that he was pressuring the fight and throwing and connecting consistently. Murat was backing up to the ropes and planning, then connecting with heavy shots. Dorticos was jabbing and throwing the straight right. He was standing straight up, eating big shots from Gassiov, but still came forward. He should have dipped and moved his head and feet, especially in the last round. I don't think Murat would have gotten in a firefight with Dorticos because Dorticos has excellent speed and counterpunching abilities. Murat consoled Dorticos in the post-fight press conference because Dorticos cried, felt that he had failed the people who believed in him. But to me, he had nothing to be ashamed of. Those fights make boxers great, and it makes boxing great. I agree. I think, it's the old question, how many hard shots equal little pitter-pat jabs? I didn't see him dominating in this fight. I thought the right guy won. He won, whether he won all the rounds or not. It didn't matter because he took matters in his own hands, Sal. He knocked the guy out, right?
Well, that's it. I had the fight pretty much dead even. But early on, I'll tell you what, Dorticos had been forcing the fight, taking it to him, and Murat was backing up to the ropes and having to. But it was a good fight, Bill. But each of those fighters, look back at the fight. I don't think it was one time. Maybe I saw a left-right hook or a left-right-left. But they were not combination punches that were being exchanged. It was more or less 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, maybe 1-2-3 until the end, and that's when he put them together.
Well, he also worked the body. Don't forget that he worked the body.
Did.
And he even said in his post fight that his hard work and his game plan worked, and I agree with him. Hey, listen,
was good.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we got a couple of more emails to read. We'll comment on it. Then we got Larry Hazard. Then we got the Blast from the Past, which is Tommy Hearns. Busy show today. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput and a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money. It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now at the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
You know, similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604. Listen.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry a red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace? Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. Don't go anywhere. We got a great show coming up. Larry Hazard's joining us here in a little bit. We're doing our blast from the past today on one of my favorite fighters, Tommy the Hitman Hearns. Sal, I forgot to read the other part of Jesse's email. He says, hey, Billy, the Saturday ESPN broadcast did 741,000 viewers. Is that good? Yeah, it's good, but it's good and bad. The good part is it did 741,000 viewership. People watch it. The bad news is they watched boring fights in a sense. They were showcase fights. Somebody emailed the other day saying, "Oh, it was great to learn about these guys." If you're gonna put a fight on a major network where you're gonna get that many views, you want to put on a fight that is gonna draw people back. You want people to say when they turn off that TV is, man, I can't wait for another fight like that. Not, oh, God, that poor guy was, sacrificial lamb. And what do you think, Sal?
I think yes and no. I think, for a casual fan, they may not really know, what a great fight might resemble or look like. And they were not as competitive, but it shows dominance, and you get to know some of these fighters with their up close and personal exchanges there and being showcased, and so it could be an early plant of a seed, and will bring people back. And that's the question: what about the fights or the fight card is going to be the grip, the hook to get people to come back? That's what it is. So if it's not the personalities or the interviews or getting to know the fighters and identifying with them and liking them and following them, it's got to be something else, the excitement of a great competitive fight. And if that was not the case, then hopefully they walked away with something that's going to make fans want to come back to the tube and watch the fight again.
What are you talking about? I don't get it.
I know.
I don't understand what you're saying.
At least to showcase the people.
Nah, but who wants to watch? Hey, you want to tune in? You want to wait till 9, 10 o'clock at night and tune into a fight that you're seeing 1 or 2 fights a week? You want to tune in to get to know somebody? I mean, don't you want to see an entertaining fight?
You want to see an entertaining fight like we did on was it Showtime? No, ESPN.
That's the fight I'm talking about. It wasn't. You thought that was entertaining?
No, I mean I wanted to see the fights, and it wasn't a great. There was no great fights there, but you had the showcase of who was supposed to win, and it was. Yeah, I want to see the guys fight again. I like watching boxing. I like to see where each fighter is in their career and how it develops and what goes on from there. And so I'll watch the fight.
My point is if they had the World Boxing Super Series on ESPN and drew that fight against Dorticos between Gassiov and Dorticos,
yes,
and that was in front of 741,000 people, I bet you dollars to donuts that every one of them and then some would have tuned into the next broadcast. With them showing Ramirez beating the snot out of somebody that had no business being in the ring with him, and he's not even fully developed, and then the other kid, Jerwin, beating up his opponent, knocking him out, that shouldn't have belonged in the ring with him. I mean, all they say is the same thing. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. This is why I don't watch boxing anymore, because it's not competitive. It's not this. It's not that. I'm not staying up till 11 o'clock. And if you tried to DVR that, because ESPN switches all their channels all the time, you didn't get to see it anyway. Because after it switched from ESPN News, it went to another network, and the technology's not there to switch back. It's smart enough to pick it up, but it's not smart enough to switch back. So, I love the fact. I get what you're saying to a degree. I love the fact it's on ESPN and it's available for us to watch. And don't get me wrong, it's always good to hear the story of the fighter before they come on and step into the ring. But if you're going to do a showcase fight, why are you going to showcase it on a network like that or on a cable network when we're wide? But boxing is
what else is available, Bill? I mean, it's the lesser of any other option. I mean, you're not going to see any major networks. It's got to be on a sports channel, and ESPN has been the leader on public network sports to relate the news and relate the sporting events.
Yeah, no,
so I
that's
mean,
true.
you look at the players today, and that's what I'm talking about. You look at who's in the game, who's throwing their hat in the ring.
Well, I just wish they would throw some punches in the ring. But anyway, the last part of his email is he says, "Hey, Billy C, I heard Jacobs will probably face Saluki. Is that a good fight? I think so, since other top guys are not stepping up or Hearn is not giving him a chance to top." And then he says Zurdo needs to step up his opposition. Clearly needs to step up his opposition. The funny thing about Daniel Jacobs is this guy, he's beyond the Salukis. I'm sorry. He's beyond that. He's got to deal with HBO, and it's time for him to fight the major fights. Now, the fight I'd be trying to make is Daniel Jacobs against Billy Joe Saunders. It requires somebody to open up the checkbook. Billy Joe Saunders is all about the money, but that would be a good fight. To watch Daniel Jacobs do exactly what we're talking about now. I'm criticizing Top Rank for putting their champions against guys that don't stand a chance. Well, let's call a spade. Daniel Jacobs against Saluki. No disrespect to Saluki. It's not going to be a competitive fight. Daniel Jacobs wins that fight, Sal.
Well, yeah, and you're right. And 99% sure that Daniel Jacobs should win the fight. There are always those variables, and there's always a puncher's chance. There's always something that could happen. And a fighter could have an off night, but. On paper, black and white, Daniel Jacobs should win easily. And I know what you're saying. And is it a step back, or is it a showcase, or does he need to? He should be back up in the mix, and he should be fighting top contenders and vying for a championship. And he should be fighting a fighter such as that.
Next email is from my man Johnston. He says, "Hey, Billy C and Sal, I just wrote an article on the demise of the journeyman, as I feel they're starting to fade out here in Britain. We used to have loads of them, but now we only have a handful of good, decent journeymen that will last the whole fight." And by the way, if you want to catch the article, it's up on BillyCBoxing.com. He says, "Just wondered if you have noticed the same problem on your side of the pond. Our problem now is we're pulling in the European fighters with padded records to fool a boxing fan. This isn't just a problem on televised events, but in small hall events as well. I think the journeyman is massively important for the development of prospects and for boxing as a whole. I think the younger generation that watch boxing don't understand the other side of boxing. What do you guys think? How important do you think they are?" They're extremely important, and that's why Britain is in the position they are, because they have a really good collection of journeymen. And when you look at these guys, the uninformed or uneducated boxing fan will look at a record and say, 20 wins and 60 losses. That guy's a bum. Well, if a young fighter is fighting that guy, 20 wins and 60 losses is still 80 professional times he got into the ring. And that's experience that you're trying to give to your young fighter. And these journeyman type fighters are extremely important. The reason why we're losing them, and the reason why Britain is losing them now, is the same reason why we already lost them. Because of the inability of the promoters to promote, the fan base thinks that these fighters are not worthy and don't want to buy a ticket. So instead, you got to go find a guy with a good-looking record who is still not dangerous for your young fighter. And instead of looking at the guys who those 60 losses are against, you look at a guy who you've never seen any and heard of any of those wins, but because he's got the O, he must be good. And that's what promoters and television networks do today. And that's why we have young fighters that finally get a chance at a world-class level fighter, and they get blown out. What's your thoughts, Sal?
Well, you said it right there. It's so true on so many levels. Once in a while, you'll see the fighter rise to the occasion and show that he can fight. But 9 times out of 10, what you just said is the pathway of where we've been with boxing, and that's why I hate to do what you don't want to do. We always revert back to some of those other decades where it was a different game. But that's the benchmark. That's what we have to utilize as far as where we are looking at then versus now. And those are some of the things that we, some changes have not always been good for the sport of boxing, because it is the sport that seldom needs change. I mean, look at the basics. You get two men that think they could beat each other. You put them in a ring and you promote it and you let them fight. And the best one goes on. The other one's got to make up and fight his way back. So the formula is basic. The whole thing is basic. But it's how everybody wants to put the subterfuge, put this in there, and the obstacles, and it makes it more difficult. And it should be more black and white, like it always has been.
Well, we have one more email. See, I was going to make a comment about that, a funny comment,
I know,
but I'm not going to, because it might
no.
offend somebody. So you can't even do comedy anymore. But I have a really good email from my man Mitch. Well, it looks really
He
good.
always gives good emails.
Yeah, and this one is well thought out, and it's kind of long. So if we don't get a chance to read this one a little bit later, I will definitely read it tomorrow. So, Mitch, if you're listening and feeling you're getting slighted, don't worry about it. You're not going to get slighted. I wouldn't slight my man Mitch. We got to get Mitch down to our next event.
Yes, we do.
For sure. And I tell you, for everybody that has heard us talk about it and stuff like that, this year we're going to have a good one at the end of August. We'll solidify some dates for you, hopefully by the time we get back from vacation next week. But you got to make the plans for this one. This is the one where you're going to have to call. You're going to not call, but drop me an email. Everything has to be done through us. We are going to be setting up, and you may not, want to package deal. You might want to just come. That's fine, but it has to be a list. It's going to be an invitation. We have people just stopping in that we, just luckily fall into our event. Well, we want to know who's there because we're going to be doing some golf stuff. You're going to be teamed up with some celebrities and champions, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a real good one, and you don't want to miss it. Bring the family, bring your friends, whatever. But we need to know. And you need to make your plans now. It's early in the year, but this is the best time to plan it out. The end of August is when I'm going to do it. I'm looking forward to this, Sal.
Well, me too. And as you're saying, if we can come up with an itinerary, this is a time for a family to plan for a little vacation, not just a weekend, but build your vacation around what we're going to tell you and see if it could work in your schedule, and come on down, go see the beaches, go see the neighboring towns, take a drive to Savannah or Jekyll Island from St. Simon's, or venture out to Fort Frederica and go on the tour buses here and see all the history that that I learned about from a different perspective than where I grew up in the Northeast. So,
hey, listen,
there's a lot here.
Hey, listen, Frederica, we got to go take a break. So we'll talk to you later. Sal will be back a little bit later. We're going to get Larry Hazard scheduled to be on the show here in a couple of minutes. We'll be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
Similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
This is important news for women using birth control medications and devices. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with a pseudotumor after using one of these birth control drugs or devices, you may be eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Contact the law firm of Davis & Crump right now if you or a loved one have used one of these birth control medications or devices and were diagnosed with a pseudotumor to see if you are eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call now. Operators are standing by.
Hologram USA presents a proposal to...
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man. www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com, and tell them Billy C sent ya.
The one, the only, Don King.
Makes me feel good, Billy, to have you, the #1 show in the country, talking boxing with Billy. So I invite each and every American that's listening to this great show to tune in, because we want you to be there with Billy and me.
Now back to Talking Boxing with Billy C., the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C., damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
The undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us today. And speaking of being with us, joining me right now, Boxing Hall of Famer and New Jersey Boxing Commissioner Larry Hazard. Good morning, Larry.
Good morning, Billy.
How you doing today, my man?
Very good. We had a delayed opening today. Expecting some snow, rain, snow mixed with rain, or whatever the combination. Looking for a little inclement weather down this way. But otherwise, everything's fine.
I saw the weather reports, and it's starting that way, but then it's going to turn to ice and rain. Unfortunately for us, it's going to head our way. Usually it goes out more towards the east into the water and hit Boston, but I guess it's turning north, and we're supposed to get 12 to 16 inches, no sign of rain or ice. So I've about had it. With that. But all next week I'll be on vacation. So FYI, I'm taking the grandkids down for some fun in Florida. So I'm looking forward to that. But hey, Larry, the World Boxing Super Series, the final now is set between Usyk and Gassiev. And the fight this past weekend between Gassiev and Dorticos was just another one of these great fights that the World Boxing Super Series has produced since it started. I really feel the United States has missed the boat on broadcasting this. And I really got to give Richard Schaefer some credit. And the reason why is he's taken what these promoters and television networks didn't see, Larry, and what we can see, I'm sure you'll agree with me, is that he took these guys, the cruiserweight division and the super middleweight divisions, which are not too popular in the United States, and he was able to take the champions and put them in a tournament where you unify belts and stuff, and it made financial sense for these guys. And we had gotten an email earlier this week, and somebody was saying, well, what do you think they should do next? And I said, well, I would love to see one in the heavyweight or middleweight or welterweight divisions. But the problem is those fighters, wouldn't take the risk like these guys did, these cruiserweights. That's why we didn't see any American fighters. Could you imagine if they announced a welterweight tournament with Thurman and Errol Spence and Kell Brook and Keith and Sean Porter and maybe Danny Garcia and Terrence Crawford? I mean, that would be fantastic. But are these guys willing to do it? What's your thoughts?
Well, you're really hitting on a very critical point there. What Schaefer and those guys were able to do, and certainly the success of that tournament should serve as a model for the rest of boxing. We used to have sort of these mini tournaments in past decades, although they weren't called tournaments. But, I remember think back to the series, the mini series that took place with some of the top welterweights and middleweights and other weight classes in past decades. Sometimes it would only consist of 5 or 6 fighters, but it would be like a round robin. These guys would cross mix. They would fight each other, and they made for some very exciting historic battles, to be frank about it. And the whole concept should have and could have been expanded till it becomes like commonplace in the sport of boxing. But it seems like, over time, the wanting to compete, the stimulation to compete seems to diminish in the sport instead of it, getting better. And I think that we should look at what was done with that World Boxing Series. If some of these promoters are really serious about keeping boxing at the forefront, it's a great model for some of the other weight classes, even in the heavyweight division. I think that would be a great thing, and I think it would bring even more fans to the sport of boxing, and some of the fans that have left would probably come back. The whole concept is having the best fight the best. That's what the fans want. I mean, that's what fans have wanted in the sport of boxing for generations now, and that's not going to change. And
the best part of those tournaments, Larry, is that you don't know. It's exciting for the fan to wonder who the next 2 guys are going to fight. It keeps them hooked. It's like what boxing does today is it hooks the fish, the fan, right? But then doesn't set the hook. Let the fan off the hook. What you need is stuff like this where you set the hook and then reel them in. And the only way you're going to do that is if you continue with exciting matchups. Somebody
right.
mentions the Super Six, right? I love the Super Six. I thought it was great, but think about that. The way they set that up, it took 2 years to finish, and all the guys that started in it didn't finish in it. Mystery injuries happened. They realized the risk that was taking place, and they bailed. These guys that have signed up and have followed through with the World Boxing Super Series have done none of that. They've stuck with it, and there hasn't been one fight that wasn't highly entertaining. The saddest part of it was we had a sparring partner, one basic pro sparring partner from the U.S. out of both of these divisions participate. One U.S. fighter, and he was blown out in his first fight. So to me, that speaks volumes, and it's kind of embarrassing being an American.
Well, we certainly no longer dominate in the sport that we once were very dominant. You see the European fighters are basically beginning to dominate the sport of boxing in all if not most if not all of the weight classes. And until we change the dynamic here in this country as to how we go about promoting the fights and just the overall dynamics of fighters not wanting to fight the best, not wanting to compete in an environment that's highly competitive. Guys want to go in, they just want an easy win, and it seems like they're happy with that. And then they want to proclaim themselves to be the best ever, or pound for pound the best, when they really haven't fought anybody. So until that dynamic changes, we're going to continue on a downward slope now in the sport of boxing.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And then you take like an event like we were talking about earlier today. You take an event like this past weekend on ESPN, and they have over 740,000 viewers for the ESPN fights that were on this past week, and they show blowout fights. So I mean, they weren't competitive. So you say to yourself, okay, here you have this market. Here you have these 740,000 plus sets of eyes on it. And if you would have put at least one of the two fights on there that were extremely competitive and exciting, the next time you do it, all of those people are going to come back and then some. But when you put these one-sided beatdowns on, people say to themselves, oh, that's right. That's why I stopped watching boxing. And now you got to start that whole process over again. To me, it's a laziness to a degree by the promoter. What do you think?
Well, yeah. It's the promoter, and everybody's to blame. See, we've allowed boxing to no longer become the barbershop, or the street corner pool rooms or wherever. We don't talk about boxing. Is not the subject that's talked about anymore in these neighborhood social institutions. I mean, and that tells you right there what's happened to the sport. No longer, nobody comes away from. You take this past weekend. Nobody comes away and goes back to work on Monday talking about what a great fight we saw last weekend. Oh, they come back talking about the Super Bowl, of course, but nobody comes back to work the following week talking about the great fights that they saw the previous weekend. And see, that's not common. That used to be commonplace, in our society here as it relates to boxing. That no longer exists. Boxing, no longer is the centerpiece of conversations when you're talking about sports anymore. The average fans don't know who the champions are. There could be a major fight, what we consider to be a major fight coming up next week, and half the people don't even know about it, don't even know who's fighting. Never before has that been the case with our beloved sport. Boxing has always been, one of the most, if not the most, talked about sport there is in this country. And that's because, You had the fighters, and the fighters themselves weren't necessarily the greatest fighters, but they were good fighters. Fighters who were exciting and people wanted to see, the fans wanted to see. And also, if a fight was coming on a weekend, fans knew that it was going to be a competitive fight and it would be worth watching. That's not the case today. That's not the case.
Well,
and until that changes, you're going to see the interest in our sport diminish more and more. Until that changes.
Well, you're 100% right, and that's my point. If the Gassiev, first of all, after Anthony Joshua fought Klitschko, everybody was talking about it. Everybody was talking. And I got news for you, Larry. If the Gassiev-Dorticos fight or any of the World Boxing Super Series fights would have been on U.S. television, they'd be talking about that too, because those are the memorable fights. What happens is when they put on a stinker or they put on a blowout, a showcase, if you will, where the one corner has no chance unless the other corner slips and falls and knocks himself out. That turns people off. What they want is competitiveness. And just like you mentioned, and it was a great analogy about the Super Bowl, everybody's talking about the Super Bowl because it was an exciting game, regardless of which side you wanted. It was exciting, plus, the Super Bowl has become like an American holiday. But what could compete with that is when you put on these fights that are entertaining. This is the issue. This is why, and I don't mean to go back to him, but I always seem to, why I blame Floyd Mayweather a lot for what's happened in the sport. Not for his success, because I applaud that, but his style has basically, if you think about the reign, the length of time that he's been fighting the way and making the money and promoting the fact that he makes the money and fights easy opposition, or he makes it seem like he's fighting tough opposition, the fan base has accepted that. So they don't really know what an exciting fight is. They don't know what Gene Fullmer against Benny Kid Paret was like. I watched that fight again recently, and I always used to think Tommy Hearns and Marvin Hagler were the best 3 rounds in boxing till I rewatched Gene Fullmer against Benny Kid Paret. There was 10 rounds of that. Those are the kinds of fights that make lifelong boxing fans. And although we're very conscious today of long-term damage that fighters sustain from beatings like that, at least we have things in effect. Talking about the Gene Fullmer Benny Kid Paret fight, Larry, one of our discussions about that fight after we broadcast it was that, if that fight were to happen today, because as you know, Benny Kid Paret's next fight was against Emil Griffith, and subsequently he died. After that fight, everybody blamed Emil Griffith, but the truth of the matter is he died in that ring against Gene Fullmer. And Gene Fullmer, by the way, never won again. He fought 3 times, and his career was over. He lost his title, and then had a couple of rematches and lost. If that fight were taking place today, and you as a commissioner in that decision seat, even though you saw, obviously Benny Kid Paret would have been suspended. He wouldn't have been allowed to fight 2.5 weeks later like he did, or 3 weeks later. He would have been suspended. And I know for a fact you would have suspended Gene Fullmer too, because of the beatings that they both took. So maybe we've improved the rules enough in the sport where a life could have been saved. So at least we're heading in the right direction. But to not even have the fight ruins it for the fan.
You're absolutely correct, and I couldn't have said it better. Okay, we can constantly improve on the quote unquote safety aspects of boxing, because I often laugh when we use the term boxing safety. It's like the greatest oxymoron I ever heard. And of course, a sport that's innately dangerous, there's nothing safe about boxing, but we try to limit the amount of unnecessary damage, safety, okay? But you're absolutely correct in what you're saying, is that still doesn't take away from the ferociousness and the competitiveness of the sport. Because, the fighters go in, and they know what they're putting on the line, and they, like football players and everybody else in these highly contact type sports, they feel that the risk benefits are worth it, and no problem. The fans love it. Certainly, the fans don't like to see any athlete get seriously injured to the point where they might, be killed or anything of that nature. But that does not and should not take away from our efforts of putting on the best level, the best fights that can be made. And it seems like, we over time, and getting back to Floyd Mayweather, Floyd really did a great job in conditioning. See, most fans that really in this modern era don't really know that much about the sport. They have no frame of reference with the young, with the young fan base. They don't have the frame of reference that a Billy C. or a Larry Hazard or some of the other guys, that take part in our discussions have on the sport of boxing. So, many of these fans, they don't know about the great fights between the great fight between Hagler and Hearns, or the wars between Hearns and Leonard, and the Durans and the Pryors and Arguellos. They don't have that as a frame of reference. So it's easier, Billy, to condition them, a la Floyd Mayweather, to I'm the best ever. And they say, well, yes, he hasn't lost. You know what I mean? He's undefeated. He is the greatest. You see, and so this is what happens. And, until that dynamic changes, until there's a greater appreciation for what these fighters did in the past, the situation may not ever change, because, today's fans have not really seen greatness. They've never really seen greatness, in today's fighters. So, we're up against a lot in trying to change that dynamic.
No, you're right, and we were talking about that yesterday. I mean, not to redo yesterday's show, but we were saying how stupid we've become as a society, and I was joking about it, saying, you got somebody in there, they're in a restaurant, let's say, and Google, how much should I tip this guy? Google, how do I get home? Siri, I got to go get the mail. How do you mail a letter? That's what we've become. Nobody thinks for themselves anymore. You get into a discussion with somebody, so-and-so hit this many home runs. Oh, really? Let's Google it. Oh, yeah, you're wrong. He hit one less than that. It's like, geez,
right.
And the interaction is gone, and look at ourselves, most of us like to get stuff from Amazon. It's convenient. It's this, it's that. But guess what? That old-fashioned interaction with the store clerk, or the you're looking for a suit, and the ladies in there, hey, I'm looking for this. Oh, come to this rack. You don't get that anymore. There's nobody there, and the people that do work don't know anything about what they're selling. They're hitting buttons, and most people are trying to avoid the interaction. So that's what society has become. But
yes,
listen, I got a question, and I'm already out of time. We don't have enough time. Every time we start talking, it goes on and on. But this question was right up your alley, and I probably should have started with it now that I'm out of time. But I got an email the other day, and one of our listeners referenced an article that was written about boxing, and the same old articles, boxing's hurting, and this is the way they save it. And one of the points they said was that they think that the scoring system has to be changed. And I think that there's some discussion about that, not so much the system, but maybe the people who are taking score. I still believe that the technology has advanced enough that maybe we take them out of ringside and put them in a room, whatever. But what this person said was that this author felt that the scorecards should be public after each round. And he feels that people should be able to see that. And his point was boxing's the only one that the final tallies of the scores are kept secret till the end. And, my first thought was this guy doesn't know the sport because, it's easy to say that. But my thought was that, it's great for the guy that's losing to look up at the screen and say, oh, my God, I'm down 8 rounds to 1. This is the last round. I got to knock this guy out. But what about the guy that's winning that might get coax? Hey, look, I don't have to fight now. And then something silly happening. What's your thoughts on the possibility of putting the scoring up on a screen so that the not only the fighters and the trainers, but all the fans could see it? How do you think that would work?
Well, first off, that's the same argument that the WBC has based on this open scoring concept, which I'm never going to agree to. Okay, we always looking for the quickest and easiest fixes. First off, you're taking away now what I call a long-standing mystery aspect of our sport. That's part of the excitement of boxing, waiting for that decision, not knowing really who won. That's all a part of the sport, okay? And it's a part of the sport that I don't want to see leave. You got trainers in the corner, okay? It's up to the trainer to let a fighter know that he's losing. You don't have to tell a fighter that he's getting his ass beat. He knows, okay? And as far as putting the score up after each round, now you have to deal with the situation where the judges may be intimidated by fans if they look up and feel that the score should be another way. You got so many variables involved in that. The problem with, I keep saying this, the problem with scoring, in my view, and you can't get judges to be more liberal with the 10. We use a 10-point must system, but judges constantly restrict themselves to 3 points. You very rarely see a round scored 10-5, 10-4, 10-3, or whatever. You very rarely. It's always 10-9, 10-8, or in a rare cases 10-7 with knockdowns. We have to begin to change that whole concept with the judges, where they have to be more liberal with the points. At least give that a try, and let's see if that will help, because that is one thing that really, really sticks out in my view with the present scoring system. Judges are not utilizing the points properly, and I really believe that if we change that one simple dynamic, you're going to see an improvement in scoring. Now, I also would like to point this out. If you do an analysis of, let's say, 100 fights over a certain period of time, you will come away with maybe surprisingly seeing that in most, if not all of those fights, 70 or 80% or even 90% of those fights are scored properly. I mean, the winner, the person that really should have won, usually gets the decision. The focus in scoring usually comes when you get a Triple G against a Canelo in that last fight. That's where you get the hue and cry about scoring. Oh, the judges are corrupt and all that. But in most fights, judges do get it right, but I still believe that judges should be more liberal with using the points. I really believe that. This open scoring, putting the scoring up, it's going to, in my view, it's not going to improve on the scoring system. It's not going to change the way that the judges view the fights, okay? And in my view, it's going to do more harm than good, because now you're going to have a situation where judges are going to feel intimidated in some cases, and in other cases, they're going to continue to just score the fights that they do right in the present day. So that's my view on it.
I agree with you. It's almost like the referees in football now. They're afraid to make a call. They go right to the review. I think that you make a great point about the scoring, because like you and I have talked about on this show, you got a guy, you got fighter A beating the snot out of fighter B for 2 minutes and right. 2 minutes and 50 seconds of a round, and then all of a sudden fighter B lands a shot that puts him on his butt as a flash knockdown. And that
he loses the round.
That becomes a 2-point swing. Most judges will score that 10-8 when realistically you give him a point for the knockdown, but he would have lost. It's kind of a 9-9 round, So
that's right.
I don't know. I agree with you, Larry. Great topics as usual. Remember, we're not going to be here next week, but we'll be back the week after. All right.
Okay, Billy.
All right, brother. You have a good one. Hey. Be
you
safe.
Have a good vacation.
Be safe in that snow, my man.
Okay, Billy. Okay.
All right. You have a good one. Take care.
Safe travel.
Thank
you. Travel.
Thank you. That's my man Larry Hazard, and nobody does it better than Larry. Hey, listen, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, Blast from the Past, Tommy the Hitman Hearns coming up in about 2.
Billy C will be right back. Part of the Billy C Boxing Network.
Snacking has never been this exciting. At Graze.com, we combine wholesome ingredients with the flavors we all love to create over 100 exciting snacks. Like these. We'd love to send you a Graze sampler box for free. Just go to Graze.com, enter the code ENJOY36, and we'll mail your free box to your home or office. Join thousands of Grazers already in love with our exciting snacks. So come to Graze.com for your first box free.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt, the innovative technology used to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
Similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Endless pools are an incredible alternative to traditional pools, making it easy and inexpensive to swim at home. Exercise year-round against a smooth current set to your desired pace and temperature. With our new underwater treadmill, you can walk or run without stressing your joints. Endless pools are simple to install and even simpler to maintain. The water stays crystal clear with almost no chlorine. Call for your free idea kit and experience the freedom of swimming at home.
Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C., the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C., damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
The undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. Well, it's that time again. We're doing our Blast from the Past, which is being sponsored by KOFantasyBoxing.com. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. And the Title Bout Championship computer game. Download your copy right now. Visit our website, BillyCBoxing.com. and download your copy of the Title Bout Championship computer game, the same game that my man Alex Papali uses in this very segment. And speaking of this very segment, today's Blast from the Past features one of my all-time favorite fighters, a multi-division world champion, and a boxing Hall of Famer, Tommy the Hitman Hearns. And joining me right now to tell us all about the Hitman is my main man, who kind of moonlights as a hitman on the side, is my friend Alex Papali. What's up, Gun? What's up, Two Gun?
Good morning, Billy C.
How you doing?
That was one of the things that I needed when I bought my Cadillac. Was I said I need a trunk that's big enough to fit a Soprano.
That's right. Well, you need one. You need to be able to fit at least 2 or 3 bodies in there, like side by side. And they make for this kind of weather. They're perfect for adding extra weight in the back of the car.
That's right. No fishtailing.
Right. Tommy the Hitman Hearns. I'm so glad we got this as a request. Love Tommy Hearns. Tell us about the man from the Motor City.
Yeah, he is just one of the all-time greats. If I could just take one moment to just recap something from last week that I didn't do, but I was able to do now. Mark Jones updated the title bout game and put in Rockin' Rodney Moore, who was the king of the Blue Horizon. So we didn't do it because we did a place last time. I wasn't sure who to or I was going to run Rodney Moore, but he wasn't in the game. But he is now. And so I put him in against, because he was the king of the Blue Horizon, I figured, well, how did he do against today's top guys at junior welter and welter? And when unfortunately, as entertaining a fighter as he was, in real life he did fight. He lost to Trinidad. He had a pretty storied career, a lot of TV fights. But against Terrence Crawford, unfortunately, he didn't win a fight. He lost 99 and drawed once, and was stopped 90 times by Terrence Crawford, who, of course, is one of the best fighters on earth right now. And then against Keith Thurman, he did better. He won 22 and then lost 75 and drew 3. And I was able to stop 1 time, 12 times.
Interesting. 90 times TC beat him, huh? Knocked him
99.
out. 99.
Yeah. Only 1 draw.
Wow. Right. I don't know if we've ever seen one that one-sided.
I know it. I think I did run, last week I ran Mike Tyson versus Butterbean.
Oh.
And I really don't mean to diss Rodney Moore, because that is not at all a similar comparison. But,
no.
For the game, that's the results.
But remember, Butterbean did go 10 rounds with Larry Holmes.
That's true. That is true.
Tommy Hearns, tell us about this guy.
So Tommy the Hitman Hearns, yeah, one of the greatest of the modern era, and an all-around badass. His nickname was the Hitman, as well as the one I like a little better was the Motor City Cobra, because I'm just a big Snake fan. But also the way there's something about the way Tommy Hearns punches. They just look like these long, he's got such long arms, they look like long serpent strikes, So I bought that nickname, really I liked a lot. And actually, Tommy himself didn't care for the Hitman moniker because of what it sort of suggested about Detroit. Hearns was a really good kid, unlike so many boxers that you hear about, getting into some mischief, maybe some criminal activity when they were young. They're really, I don't see anything like that from Tommy Hearns. He was a good kid. He was born November 25th, 1977. October 18th, 1958. And he was born in Memphis, Tennessee. When he was 6, his parents moved to Detroit. And he didn't, it wasn't like street fighting that got him into fighting. He watched it on TV. And one of the things he said is there were no winners around me in Detroit, but I saw them on TV. And he saw Ali, and he wanted to emulate Ali. And he began boxing at 9. And, of course, that was where the partnership with the great Emmanuel Stewart of the Kronk Gym began. And he did. He went on to become one of the titans of the 80s, one of the pillars, the four pillars of Duran, Leonard, and Hagler and Hearns that were, made boxing a household name during the 80s and brought in $1 million purses and big pay-per-views, made Caesar's Palace, the place to be in terms of boxing. But him and Leonard, they developed a tremendous rivalry. They never met as amateurs, but I guess a lot of times they were at tournaments together, but they sort of passed each other. That's why when they finally did meet as pros, it was a really big deal.
So did he start working with Manny Stewart when he first got into the amateurs at 9 years old? That would have been like 1967.
From what I found, yeah, I didn't find another a coach like before.
It's so amazing when you think of the success that Manuel Stewart had with the Kronk Gym early on. For all those champions that were in the Kronk Gym, and then after that was really his last time where he took fighters from the amateur level and brought them all the way up to world champion status, because then he became like the hired gun. People remember him, most with Klitschko. What he turned around Klitschko's career. But just getting back, one comment about.
Didn't Michael Moore? Didn't he sort of adopt him at one point? I remember. I think Michael Moore was living like in a downstairs apartment with the Stewards, because that's how much he was an integral part of the development of fighters that he, took under his wing.
Yeah, several of them I recall lived with him. But Michael Moore wasn't one of them, though. Michael Moore is not. I've met him personally several times. He's not the nicest guy, but
no.
He's like Evander. But anyway, the one thing I just want to get back to real quick with Tommy Hearns and the Hitman, that, in my opinion, was the best Ring magazine cover that they ever put out, when they had him and Sugar Ray Leonard dressed like like the 30s gangsters with the Tommy guns and stuff.
Back to back.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. But amateur career for Tommy Hearns, 158 wins, 8 losses, pretty impressive.
Yeah, and he had gone on a knockout streak. I think his first 17 fights were all KOs. When Emanuel Stewart met him, he said, you're going to be the welterweight champ, you're going to be the middleweight champ, and you're going to be the light heavyweight champ. And of course, Hearns went on to do all those things. He had always had really good balance, and I think that may have been one of the things that sort of helped why his power went up with him. And of course, he was. It's funny because when he fought Pepino Cuevas, he was virtually untouched in that fight. And of course, that is one of the all-time great knockouts. It looks like the right hand he hits Cuevas with and knocks him out. It looks like Cuevas is struck with a bolt of lightning. A whole shock wave goes through his body, and then he hits him again. It's amazing. And then if you think about it, Hearns' next fight, he beats Duran, and not just beat him, he destroys him. So it was one of those things where, those were, the Duran fight was before the Hagler fight. My apologies. The Pepino Cuevas fight was the big destruction victory that he had before Ray Leonard. And it did make a lot of people, the thing that's interesting is that, now people probably think of Sugar Ray Leonard as the one to compare to Sugar Ray Robinson, in part because of the names, but also at that time, it was more Tommy Hearns. People were making those comparisons, especially after the Cuevas fight. And if you think about it, Hearns was the one who was more built like Sugar Ray Robinson, because Sugar Ray Robinson was a taller fighter with long reach. Hearns, of course, 6'1". Ray Leonard is more squat and more that mesomorph body, whereas Hearns is the ectomorph. It's interesting just to think that, because when you do read some of the articles early in his career, they are making comparisons to Sugar Ray Robinson. And by the time, I got into boxing, they weren't doing that with Hearns, because, he had been defeated in some of the big fights.
Tommy Hearns, first of all, did anyone have a meaner stare than Tommy Hearns? I think of that look, and it's kind of scary just looking at it. But the thing about Tommy Hearns, the worst thing about him was his legs. He had those chicken legs, and that was his downfall, of his 5 losses. He was stopped 4 times. But when you look at his record, when you look at his resume, and you look at the early years, when he first turned pro in 1977, he fought a pro debuter. And you sprinkle in a guy like in his 3rd pro fight, only had 3 fights, etc. But that's really it. Those 2 guys are the only 2 guys that had 3 fights or less in his first, and those were in his first 3 fights. When you look at that first couple of years of his career and look at the experience level that this guy fought, it makes you realize why he was so prepared. Because when you look at the second part of his fight, of his career, and you start looking at the names on his resume, and I know we always say this, but the wins against like Espada and the Cuevas fight, like you mentioned, yes, he lost to Sugar Ray Leonard, but Benitez and Roberto Duran, and his war with Marvin Hagler, and then James Shula was a big fight, and Mark Liddell and Doug DeWitt and Dennis Andres and Roldan, and his nemesis Barkley and James Kitchen and Aljalay and Virgil Hill. I mean, you just don't see it anymore. And quite frankly, he would have been in the Hall of Fame sooner if he didn't decide I think it was a few months away from being eligible for the Hall of Fame after his loss to Grant in 2000. But then he had that short little comeback where he won 2 fights in a row that he was fighting at home in Michigan, and it prolonged his induction into the Hall of Fame. But what a career he had when you take the minute to really look at the names on his record.
Oh, it's ridiculous, and I do think that I'm pretty sure the subject of that. It's been a while since I read it, and for some reason it's really slipping my mind. But the Springs Toledo book, Gods of War. I'm pretty sure the whole chapter on Hearns makes the argument that he is the greater fighter than Ray Leonard, and I do think that even though he did come up short against him in the second one, a lot of people, even Ray Leonard, I think to this day says, that draw should have gone to Hearns. But the first one, that was a razor thin fight. Hearns was battering Leonard. Up to the point where Leonard took over, and then there's he turns it around. There's the great corner work, of course, with Angelo Dundee. You're blowing it, son. You're blowing it. And that fight was just tremendous. And by all means, I mean, I would say that if you're that's a modern classic, and I would say it's probably one of the top 10 greatest fights, at least of the modern era. Because it was 2 unbeaten gunslingers meeting at the time, which was pretty awesome. You don't see that a lot, and they were both incredibly talented fighters. I'm sorry, Ray Leonard, I do believe. You're right. The thing
Alex, you got to repeat that because we lost you there for a second. You finished what you were saying about. You were talking about Ray Leonard, the fight with Ray Leonard.
Yeah, the fight with Ray Leonard, of course, he battered Ray Leonard pretty badly, and that was the fight where that most of the damage that did end up happening to Ray Leonard's eye was done in that fight, and of course he needed eye surgery afterwards.
Did you agree with the stoppage? There's always been, over the years, discussion about that stoppage. That he was waved off too soon. I mean, he clearly was in trouble, but because of the fact that he was dominating up to that point, should he have been, given another chance to finish the fight on his feet?
I've always watched it, knowing the history. So for me, it's very different. I think when you watch a fight live, when you're watching it happen. compared to when you watch it in retrospect. So to me, it was always an okay stoppage. It wasn't like, the Melvin Taylor, Julio Cesar Chavez, which even that, at the time I was appalled, but I understand now why that stoppage happened. It's just that it was a heartbreaker. I think Hearns was in a lot of trouble. But I do think that, I did want to mention that one of the things about his stare down, of course, the stare down in front of the Hagler-Hearns fight was just an amazing stare down. And Mike Katz, who is one of my favorite writers, said about Hearns' eyes, he said he has gentle, almost soulful eyes until you get him in the ring.
It's true. That stare down was epic. I mean, it was one of the best. There's so much to talk about with Tommy Hearns. You mentioned the Sugar Ray Leonard fight, and most people agree, including Sugar Ray Leonard, who whispered in his ear that night, "You won this fight," when they had the rematch finally. But let's jump, because we're running out of time. Let's jump to the really, no disrespect to Hearns, Leonard, but in my opinion, the most famous fight of Tommy Hearns' career, and up until I watched Gene Fullmer fight Benny Kid Paret, I thought that the Marvin Hagler-Tommy Hearns fight was the best 3 rounds of live boxing I ever witnessed in my lifetime. And I guess that's still the case, because I watched, Fullmer Paret, not live, obviously. So it was an extremely great fight. It was the first time I think it was the only time that Hagler got cut. I mean, he was bleeding pretty bad, and the fight was epic. But tell us about the fight.
Yeah, I mean, the fight was just amazing. I mean, my tattoo of Marvelous Marvin Hagler is a moment after the first round of that fight, which I think is the greatest single round ever fought. At least that we have video of. I mean, Bert Sugar, the late Bert Sugar, used to argue that Dempsey Firpo, of course, was better, but I don't know. There's no video of that.
That was one-sided, though. Well,
that was more one-sided.
Not really.
Yeah, that's true.
Not really. I mean, that first round of Hagler-Hearns, I remember watching that and just going, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, it's like literally batten down the hatches, hide the women and children, because every single punch is thrown with bad intentions, and it's literally a fight where a street fight breaks out at the Bell. And of course, part of the drama now that we realize is that might have been what had to happen. Goody Petronelli, I remember in a lot of the pre-Leonard fight stuff, I remember him talking about how there was something in Hagler that just snapped, and that's why he went at Hearns like that. But I think what we know now about from Emanuel Stewart, who revealed years later, I think it probably wasn't revealed until publicly until the Legendary Nights HBO documentary, that Hearns had a deep tissue massage on his legs just a few hours before the fight. And when Emanuel Stewart found out about that, he was just aghast. He was like, "Why did you do that? You're going to need your legs. That kind of a massage, it's almost like a workout for your legs. You're going to be sore." So Tommy had no legs. So he had to fight toe-to-toe. And that's exactly what happens. Hagler, was like, "Bring it on." The first round is amazing. One of the very first punches Hearns lands is that monstrous right hand. It actually rocks Hagler, but unfortunately, the bones shatter. So here's Tommy Hearns now in there against a monster, a terror, and he's got his main weapon is useless. So it's just amazing. It's a breathtaking fight to watch. And one of the things that Joyce Carol Oates always talks about in the sort of the drama, the tableau of what you witness, was there is this amazing moment, and it's kind of unfortunate because there was a bit of humiliation to it that Hearns didn't deserve. But there's a moment at the end where Hearns is literally picked up and cradled and carried to his corner by one of his handlers in this sort of boxing version of the pietà. And he didn't really deserve to look like that, I think, because he had already been broken and battered, but it's amazing, and it's why when our sport is great, it beats all the other sports, as Max Kellerman used to say.
The thing that you mentioned about the leg massage, but it was deeper than that. And I joke about it, but it's so true today. At the end of a fight, you'll hear the fighter say, I don't want to make any excuses, but, and then all of a sudden, I hurt my shoulder, I hurt my hand, I had an ingrown toenail, I didn't eat last night, I couldn't make weight, I don't want to make an excuse, but, and then all the excuses. The thing that amazed me about this fight, and just like you said, Tommy Hearns broke his hand on Hagler's head, which ultimately I think was what caused that cut. He never said anything about the broken hand. It was years later that you find out that he shattered his hand. He as a true professional should, he let Marvin Hagler soak in the limelight and get all the credit that he deserved for winning that fight. And that's what a great champion does. Hagler was better than him that night. Unfortunately, we never saw a rematch because of the Hagler-Leonard fight, and that was the end of Hagler. But I've always appreciated that from Tommy Hearns, Alex.
Oh yeah, that's that's the thing about him is, and maybe that just goes along with him being a good kid, growing up. He always kept his nose clean, he it might have been why he fought longer than everybody else. He had that healthy living, but it was also a mindset. That's why he did take it personally, feel ashamed with that hitman imagery. What did that say about the city of Detroit, the place that he loved? So yeah, he was a good guy, and I think that and that you never see that nowadays, of being humble and being not taking away from a victory from your opponent, and it's pretty cool, and I don't know. I mean, in a way, it's, I guess people, because nowadays fighters suffer because people want that from them, and I think maybe sometimes it's more to expect, but when you do see it, you should, of course, appreciate it.
Alex, how did he do in Title Bout Championship computer game?
Of course, he smoked everybody of today. It's not even funny. I put him in the weight divisions that Manny Stewart thought of him, welterweight, middleweight, and light heavyweight. Against Keith Thurman, he laid waste to Keith Thurman, won 90 victories, lost 10 times, which that's a little striking to me. And he stopped one time, 73 times. Against Triple G, he dominated Golovkin. 97 victories for the Motor City Cobra, only 3 defeats. He knocked out the Kazakh 96 times. And against the now retired but #1 guy at light heavyweight, Andre, the son of God, Ward, Thomas Hearns made him his son 98 times, lost only once. They drew once. And every single time he won, Hearns knocked Andre Ward out, 98 KOs.
The thing I loved about Tommy Hearns was he had that knockout pop. I mean, he would just crush you. And he could box, as he showed in the Leonard fight. He was just so well versed, and I loved him. He was one of my favorite fighters, and I wish we would get more Tommy Hearns. Unfortunately, the sport has changed so much, where to produce a guy like that is very difficult. But
I tell you, one of my all-time favorite fights, and if people haven't seen it, they should check it out on YouTube, is Hearns Roldan.
Great fight. Great fight.
It's a great fight. They both hurt each other. It's an action fight. There's the great moment when Hearns knocks him out at the end. Hearns sort of rolls up to put his hands up, and just I've always loved that. And then he pumps his fist. It's just a great fight. Yeah, and it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, no, there's so many. I mean, Tommy Hearns is the kind of fighter that, if you really didn't get a chance to watch him while he was active, go back and watch. A lot of his fights are available. But Tommy Hearns, our blast from the past this week. Great job as usual, Alex. Tommy Hearns, Now, these are the major belts. He did pick up some other belts, but he was a former world welterweight, junior middleweight, super middleweight, light heavyweight world champion. He was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2012. He would have been inducted sooner, but after his loss against Uriah Grant in the year 2000, 5 years later, he came back and fought John Long in July of 2005. And several months after that, in February of 2006, he fought his last fight against Shannon Landberg. Both of those fights were knockout victories. He finally hung him up and had a career record, 61 wins, 48 coming by knockout, 5 losses in which he was stopped 4 times. He had 1 draw, and that was the rematch against Sugar Ray Leonard. 379 rounds of his 67 total fights with a 72% knockout ratio. Tommy the Hitman Hearns, one of my favorite all-time fighters, and clearly an all-time great. I think so, Alex. And sometimes he gets lost in the shuffle when you're talking about, the great names, and it's a shame. But a great job as usual. We got next week off, brother, but we'll be back the following week, and we'll be announcing our next Billy C's Magic Boxing Machine, or whatever we call it. I got a lot of requests. I mean, we got at least 6 matchups all in the tank there. So
awesome!
Looking forward to
I
that.
can't wait for Foreman Tyson and Holmes Foreman. Those are the two ones I can't wait to do.
Yeah, well, we better slip them in because we got all kinds of other ones in there.
Okay.
But yeah. All right, my man, you have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon, all right?
Billy C, take care.
That's Alex Papali. You can catch him on Wednesdays. Listen, we're going to take a short break, and I'm scheduled to get Sal Rocky Santa Cola Black. I'll be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back. Part of the Billy C Boxing Network.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt, the innovative technology to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
Similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system break down, bust your budget, or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money. It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white...
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face?
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. He may not have an Excellence in Broadcasting award, but the night's still young.
And he's got martinis.
So you never know what may be by morning. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
Talking boxing with Billy C. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. And speaking of being with us, my man Sal Rocky Senecola is with us. And Sal, I want to get your thoughts, man. I mean, Alex and I could have talked for 2 or 3 hours about Tommy Hearns.
So could I.
What do you best? Could you shut up for a minute? I'm trying to ask you a question. What's the best thing that you remember about Tommy Hearns, and why did you love him so much?
Tommy was a very, very humble man. He never really touted his own horn because he didn't have to. It's what we say, Bill. He brought his guns to the fight, and everybody else had to speak and amplified what Tommy Hearns was about. He was a very quiet, humble guy, as I said. And even the one fight that was a draw against Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy accepted the draw. We're like, hey, man, we fought a good fight. He won that fight. He didn't even know, but he won that fight. He could have been a different attitude. What are you talking about, a draw? I won that fight. No, Tommy Hearns was a gentleman. Hey, I'm glad to get the draw. That's the attitude. There's so much about Tommy Hearns. His exchange, which I didn't know about it, the whole thing with Hagler, why he chose to stand toe-to-toe instead of move and box a little bit. But, it did give us one of the 3 great rounds. And, I can't help but comment. I'm going to say this. I know you and I always refer or reflect back into that era, that generation of fighters, which I'm proud to be a part of. But when you look at the record of what Tommy Hearns would have done against this class of champions and fighters today, come on. I mean, it says something, doesn't it?
There's no question. And
that's why we go back.
Exactly.
We were witnessing, you didn't know it, and you often say that we were witnessing some of the best boxing in our lifetime.
Well,
what we were going to see.
I've always said that when people ask, if somebody came up to me during these times, during 1985, when Hagler and Hearns were getting ready to fight in the war. I mean, if somebody came and said, hey, Bill, what do you think? You think this is the last great era of boxing? I would have laughed at them. I go, what? These guys? Forget about it. These guys are nothing. I would have said, oh, what about the 60s? What about the 50s? What about the 40s? Now, you fast forward 30 years and there's nothing been comparable. And the fighters of today, this is why, and I mean this, Sal, and I don't mean this in a negative way. I know sometimes I get out there, but here's the thing. That's why the fans today don't know the sport of boxing, because, and Larry Hazard made a good point, these kids today haven't taken the time to go back excuse me, and watch these kinds of fights and learn about what we're talking about. If they did, and then objectively looked and compared, they would see why we get so upset with a statement like I'm the best ever from Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather was the best of his generation. You can make that argument. Floyd Mayweather is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm not going to argue with that. I'll vote for him. But the truth of the matter is he's clearly not the best ever. And this era alone would have wiped him up. And if you go further beyond that, there's guys that would have wiped this era up. So, I'm sorry, but it's just not the case, and just because he says so doesn't mean. It's a shame that they don't understand that, but they don't understand a lot. Siri, who is the best ever? Like yesterday.
Well, I am. Don't you know that? Siri's the best ever.
They had the commercial. Siri lost her voice, but
yeah.
Anyway, but listen, tomorrow, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say this, what you just said, the history of boxing. When when I first started expressing I wanted to fight the Golden Gloves and go into this and fight that, he went out of his way. My father was an incredible man. He went out of his way, and however he did so, procured for me endless little 8 millimeter, super 8 millimeter reels of film on Sugar Ray Robinson, Henry Armstrong, Rocky Graziano, Marciano, Jake LaMotta. He got me Ancient Archie. He gave me, a whole bag. A bag of endless reels of fights. And we had a projector, and we would watch these fights. So my benchmark was established, as you said, the generations. These were great fighters. I didn't think there was another fighter alive better than Henry Armstrong. And I looked at his style. He was incredible. And to see the multi-divisional champion that he was, like I said, it set the benchmark high. And then we fast forward to the 80s, the benchmark was on par. It said high. And then when we look at today, like you were suggesting, the casual fan or some of the young fans today, they don't have much of a benchmark to refer back to see how the history of fighters and boxing was on a level that really today can't compare to.
And truthfully, and I got to go, but truthfully, they don't do it with any of the sports. So
no,
it's
they
just
don't.
it's
they don't.
And you know what the saddest part is? You had to watch through old 9mm films, similar to myself, or thank God I had some friends that had a collection that put them on VHS and we watched them on it. Today, the beauty of it today for these young fight fans out there, or any sports fan, is you have all the fights at your fingertips. Just take the time and watch them. That's all. Yeah. That's all you got to do.
Let these fight fans go Google Henry Armstrong and let him watch one of his wars.
Who's Henry Armstrong? Google. Yeah.
Well,
hey, listen! Don't forget.
Or Siri.
Don't forget. Google talks too now. Don't forget.
You put mud in my eye.
Don't forget. I got a great email I'm going to read tomorrow from Mitch. So you guys make sure you tune in tomorrow. We got another busy show scheduled. I think Dax is going to come on with his thoughts on the World Boxing Super Series. Programming note: we will not be here all next week. Finally, I'm going to go on a little vacation, and Sal needs a break too, and we will be back better than ever the following week. But we will be here tomorrow and Friday. But on this day, February 7th in 1961, Harold Johnson knocks out Jesse Boundary in the 9th round to win the vacant World Light Heavyweight title, and that took place in Philadelphia. On this day in 1929, Spider Pladner knocks out Johnny Hill in the 6th round to win the California and British World Flyweight titles in Paris. And yes, they had world titles via states back in those days. And finally, on this day, February 7th, in a pretty strange fight, in 1997, Lennox Lewis knocks out Oliver McCall in the 5th round to regain the vacant WBC World Heavyweight title. It took place in Vegas. This was the one where Oliver McCall turned around and was crying, and Lennox Lewis was punching this guy in the face, 3-4 solid shots. And that's when I said, geez, Oliver McCall has a solid chin, because all he was doing was crying. He was taking those punches like he wasn't hitting back or nothing. He was taking those punches like they were flies. And we all know Lennox Lewis packed a punch. So strange happenings on this day in 1997. Hey, listen, man, make sure you guys tune in tomorrow morning. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.